Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay? My name is Big Man. I'm a re-alcoholic. Yeah, our workshop today will be about the overview of the fourth and fifth step, how to sponsor, some of the ins and outs, and our presenter will be Tony.R. Here we go.
You feel like that now. We'll see how you feel after I'm done. Right? I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name's Tony. What a great event, and the last speaker was great. I really enjoyed your message. It was, and it's really profound how close it is to the message of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. All the principles he was talking about is the very thing that this thing is built on. Right? And a lot of time, how many people came in here hoping to keep their story? How many people came in here looking for a different story? Right? Like we come here because usually we're out of options, right? Anybody? Or court order, then that's a different that's a different group of people. But what a great job they did this morning on chapter 7. What a great job. The treatment center, the facilities, what you have available here. It's pretty extraordinary. I felt like right at home when people were talking about their experience with the book. Same experience. Really weird. I come originally from Toronto and I'm out in BC now. We use the same manual, and it's really weird. We're having the same experience. It's kind of weird when we're all doing the same thing. They talk about we have a way out which we can absolutely agree. The only people who don't agree with it is those who haven't done it. Right? And it sounds like this. Well, my program, for me, but didn't you come here looking for our solution? Yeah, but it's not jiving. It's not working for me. Right? And so the hard part is we can't really get past our own thinking. How many people sit in a meeting and think the whole time? Right? And I said that yesterday. I wonder how this works. The guy's reading how it works. Right? And we talked about that. We come in here. I got problems. Right? I got an hour to think about how I'm going to solve the very problem that I created. Anybody use their own? And so what they talk about is the unmanageability. Anybody, and a lot of people think, oh, it's my bills and this and that. But the unmanageability they talk about in step 1 is the inability to stay sober. Has anybody had that problem here? Right? We like in Vancouver, they started saying this new thing, relapse isn't a part of my story. Well, then you don't got a story, right? Right? Because if I could have stayed sober, I wouldn't be standing here. You'd have a different speaker. Anybody? So the problem is we can't get past our own thinking. We're plagued. We're really plagued with our thinking. And when they get into this thing, and a lot of people have been through the process, look at sponsorship, and if you're kind of new, we'll hit some highlights. These worksheets here, this is the second group of sheets we put together. These cues on here, you could use your phone to get access to it. There's a first set that leads you into the second set when we talk about more about alcoholism, and it brings you into how it works, and it's the foundation to getting into the fourth step. Because a lot of people, how many people hear the fourth step as a boogeyman? Whoa. Well, you're listening to the wrong people. Who you got to listen to is people who's actually been through a 4 through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, because the experience is just phenomenal. You know, and how many people here has heard the promises read? When they say you'll be amazed before you're halfway through, that's suggesting you're doing something that's suggested, right? Being amazed not halfway through the meeting, that's not the kind of amazement they're talking about. Or she smiled at me, things are looking good. Not that kind of amazement, right? But I mean, whatever works for you at first, right? They'll get you praying. Dear God, take it back. Anyways, so the fourth step, what's the purpose of the fourth step? And it's really interesting if you kind of get a lot of different ideas. But if you go back to the book, you know what's the best way to find out if you got a good sponsor or not? How many people would like to know? Nobody would like to know. When you could borrow money from. No, just joking. So when she'll give you your phone number after the first meeting. No, so a sponsor is one who could show you what they're talking about. Most people in AA can't show you what they're talking about. They can talk about it, because they heard something good at one meeting and they're sharing it at another meeting. So they have fellowship-based good ideas, catchphrase sobriety, throw a bumper sticker at it. How many people's tried that here? Turn it over, let it go, surrender, acceptance. Sounds good, right? It's like the guy coming into a meeting says, hey, your house is on fire. The guy goes, oh, turn it over, let it go. No, it's your house. Oh my God, right? It's just, when it's plagued with you, it's a problem. If somebody else has it, it's not really a problem. Anybody understand that stuff? Yeah. How many people try to fake it till you make it? How many people got a 24-hour chip for your efforts? Here's your prize. So the hard part about this is realizing, do I have a behavioral problem or do I have an illness? Because if I have a behavioral problem, then I could fix it. Because we could fix stuff. Anybody spend a long time fixing stuff? Weaving, bobbing, maneuvering. We heard the lady talking about today. I got a lawyer for a sponsor, working the angles all the time. We're angle people. What's in it for me, right? Hey, could you come help out for what, right? I do service. I put away my chair this morning. That's not the service that they're talking about. We're kind of weird that way, right? So we mean show up half an hour before a meeting to help somebody else out. How many people have been told that they were the most important person here? How many people still believe that? Good, because you are. It's very important that you're here. So they talk about in the big book, the first page, the story of how many thousand men and women have recovered. The most important part about that statement is, if you're self-centered like me, you would think recovered. Anybody? But it's actually the story, because without the story, there's really the miracle of this thing that has happened. Like the gentleman that was talking about the stories earlier. The stories is what gives is essence. It gives it the wow factor. It gives it, I can't believe it. You used to be like this, and then you did something that makes no sense whatsoever, and now your life is like this. Like when I was talking to Big Man, I was picturing him singing on the porch, banging the pots, and I mean, he thought he was sounding good, like waiting to be discovered, right? and then he's here, but you kind of look at it. The story of Alcoholics Anonymous unfolding in his life. So when he talks, he represents that story. And then when you look at his life, how many people he impacts and things, and you look at his demeanor, there's something happening within his life that he didn't create it, but he got access to. Then you hear a lot of people who are new who represent their story, their ideas. And you see the confusion, the pain, and the attachment that they have to their story. They can't get past their story. They got self stuck on self. Remember that Band-Aid? I got Band-Aid stuck on me. You guys didn't have that here. I'm from Canada, maybe not. But it was a commercial about Band-Aids being able to be stuck on you no matter what. And we have that story. We're stuck on ourselves no matter what. How many people was the first person you thought about this morning was you? How many people still thinking about you? And when you go to bed tonight, how many are still thinking about you? So we're our most important, we find that we're our first obsession. I mean, not be much, but I'm all I think about, right? And then I married a woman that thought about me as much as I did. So a perfect marriage. Anyways, moving on. So they talk about this story here, and then they start getting into this collective understanding of what the problem is and what the solution is, and that this thing is tried, tested, and true. It was kind of formulated 87 years ago. And it was not only witnessed by those who participated in it, it was witnessed by the professional field. That a group of people seems that methods didn't work. How many people have been to treatment more than once here? How many people have been in and out for? So the just don't drink doesn't work, does it? The hitting bottom just don't. The parking lot, my alcoholism is in the parking lot doing push-ups. We'll stay out of the parking lot. I got to get to my car. Well, I guess you're in trouble. So we say things that don't make any sense because we don't understand what we're dealing with. We don't know what our component is. Like in any game or any fight or anything like that, what you do is get a video of who your opponent is. Anybody ever have a problem with somebody? You want to find out all about them before you go get them, right? You don't want to get yourself in over your head. Anybody? Yeah. I'm going to go get that guy, but he's connected. Maybe I won't go get that guy. Maybe I'll leave that guy alone. Do some research, because when you don't do research, you really pay for it, right? And we're this type of people. I don't mean this in a bad way, but I mean it in a way that kind of look at it. Nobody's been to jail here, I guess, eh? So you're sitting in a cell and wondering what happened the night before. Anybody? You still got the smell of maybe some fresh puke on you and the handcuff marks and the 12-size boot. They call that a 12-step call, but I think that's another topic. And the guy beside you or the woman beside you goes, "Here, use my lawyer. They're really good." You say, "Thank you." It doesn't dawn on you, if their lawyer was really good, they wouldn't still be sitting in a cell with you, would they be? And that's how we treat recovery. What we do is we sit and we talk to each other, hoping what you're telling me is the truth, but based on what? Where do you get your understanding from? Where do you get this conclusion, right? There's like a lot of people think alcoholism is a choice. Well, then if you keep choosing to do that, then you may need no more help that we can help you with. Because who would choose to do what we've done to ourselves? Anybody? It's something that has us. And if it has us, and it's going to continue to happen, and my fate is a horrible death. We heard that great story about the guy's brother here who's going into treatment. He didn't choose for his liver to be like this, jaundice and all that, but he's going to treatment. What a gift, right? My brother wasn't so fortunate. He died at 32, full-blown cirrhosis, full-blown AIDS. Died of this illness. My other brother's sitting doing in the crack house, right? "Merry Christmas," right? How you doing? I say, "Hey, you ever think on treatment?" He says, "For what?" so he's 55, and you look at him, it's like, holy shit. So what he's created is a delusion that he's comfortable with. He's become numb to his own life, where not even that small part of him could get a hold of him anymore. You know that voice? Anybody have that voice? "What are you doing? Why are you living like this? There's something better for you." How many people has experienced that? Where did that come from? You're in the pit of your despair. Snot running out of your nose because no one's looking at you. You're not cool anymore. Right? And you have that moment of total destruction and despair and bewilderment. How many people have been there? And you give anything to change the life or the experience that you're having. You do anything. Right? And you try everything and it's not working. Right? And then you get to a place, you come here seeking help. And what happens is our responsibility of sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous is to carry this message. Not any message. This message. Because this message was put together by the founders as a way of tried, tested, and true. That means anybody coming here looking for a solution to the dilemma that's killing them can find an answer. And so it's a collective experience. So as they go through here, they explained alcoholism, and when we find out that this thing that we can't escape, that we don't have it, it has us. And it's determined my life. It determines my choices. It determines where I spend my money. It determines me not being there for my kids. It determines me getting in my car. It determines the things that I do. And what gets my attention is the consequences. And I think the consequences are alcoholism. No, the consequences are associated with anybody who drinks and uses to that extent. That's why they call it impaired. Impaired judgment. Right? And if you can't control the amount you drink, you're always going to have impaired judgment. Well, that's a newsflash. Right? So I thought methamphetamine was the solution to alcoholism, but it wasn't. But it helped you think that we're straight over 3 days. But anyways, moving on. So what happens is my inability to see things as they are because I warp things. Anybody warp reality here? And it starts from the first time you get in trouble. Anybody remember the first embarrassing time they had with drinking? Your conscience would talk to you. Remember lying there and you think what you did the night before and you hear the people, it's like, oh my God. Oh, I got to go up the stairs because I can't crawl out the window. I'm too fat. So I got to go up the stairs. And they're all up there. You hear the foot. And anybody remember the first time they felt that embarrassment, having to face these people? You're lying there and your brain goes, hold up, just wait a second. Let's go over this again. So you go over it again and you change it. Still not comfortable with it. Your brain says, let's go over it again. You go over it again and it becomes funny, somebody else's fault, or I don't remember. You get the courage to go face those people and laugh at the situation 5 minutes earlier was beyond comprehension that you did. How many people have that kind of thinking here? Now imagine 10, 15 years of that, or hundreds of episodes. of changing, warping things. And then you get to a stage where people are telling you about you and you don't believe what they're saying about you. Because there's your version of you, and then there's everybody else's versions of you. I don't like their version of me. So when they try to say something to me, I punish them. It's better not to say anything to me than to say something to me. Anybody like that? So now I'm coming into recovery and I'm going to sort out my life with my thinking on things that make sense to me. Oh boy. How many people sponsor people here? The best thing you can do when sponsoring somebody is this. What did you hear me saying? Because you're talking to them, they're thinking. Anybody? Then you go, what did you hear me saying? And they go, ah. You know what is short for? Can you repeat that? Or rephrase the question. So the guys who started saving my life at 27, after 11 years of in and out, 2 treatment centers, 4 12 and 12 studies a week, 360 meetings in 90 days was my last relapse. I lived in Alcoholics Anonymous. Got a 3-month chip. I relapsed an hour after the meeting. Chronic alcoholic. Vomiting, bile, unemployable. Just danger to myself and everybody around me if you heard that story. So this guy started mentoring me without my permission. He got me into a big book study. And he started showing me about alcoholism. And then he got me to page 44 and he got me to explain it. If you have anybody new, they should be able to explain page 44 before you move on with them. Because that's where page 44 turns into the transition into step 3. Right? And if you have your big book, what it talks about, you can write it down later, is 44 talks about in the preceding chapters you've learned something of alcoholism. Right? And then from then on, they don't talk about alcoholism anymore. They talk about the human condition. What I used to treat with alcohol. Anybody? How many people has treated their anxiety with a drink here? Their fears, their problems, and you had some solution with it, and then you remember next time you had a problem, that you kicked into that, and then somewhere along the line, the allergy took over, then the insanity of the first drink took over, or you became without defense, and it started to determine your story. So on page 44 here, you should be able to explain this before you move on, right? And we're getting into, a lot of people don't understand the purpose of step 4, that's why they're having a hard time with step 4, right? And so they talk about, if I'm of this type that they talked about, who talked about? The people that put this together, the collective experience of explaining what alcoholism is. What I'm doing is concurring that I have this. I'm coming into agreement that the things that they talked about, I exhibit those symptoms, right? Whether I agree to it or not doesn't change it, but by agreeing to it, it puts me in a position of looking at the solution. Then they said if I was of this type, a real alcoholic, the one who has the malady that centers in the mind that places me beyond human aid. That means being without defense against the first drink. What does that mean? Well, how many people has relapsed here? How many people would like to know if you've done step 1 or not? Nobody would like to know. One person. Well, I'd like to know. The other 3 people, it's a trap! It's a trap! Just keep your hand down. I have my friend, he goes option B, option C, he goes, it was A, B, he goes, option C, I don't want to get involved, right? You're involved. So think about the last time you picked up. Everybody there, you're sitting there, you've been sober a day, maybe successful, or a week, or month, a year, and you're about to pick up again. Don't say it out loud. For yourself. Tell yourself what you would have done different in that moment. How many people thinking about something they would have done different? I'm going to be a bit of a, what you just did there is you haven't really done step 1 yet. Because if you could have done something different, then you're not beyond human aid. And that means next time you'll be able to do something different. So I don't really need this solution. Because the last time, 360 meetings, and the guy asked me that on page 44 when I got here. He said, Tony, the last time you picked up after that meeting, you got a 3-month chip, you're drinking. What could you have done different? If I would have said, gone to a meeting, prayed, helped somebody, then what I'm really saying is I'm not powerless over alcohol, am I? That given the opportunity, I could have had power over that moment. So I don't really need your solution. I just need better thinking in those moments. When I said there was nothing I could do about it, He says, good. What can you do about your future relapses? Because that's what I'm agreeing to in step 1, that I'm going to relapse again. That's the step 1 promise, that I'm going to do it again. So that should give you a feeling of hopelessness. And that's why the book says, relapse. We have a solution for you. And it comes in the nature of a spiritual experience, a spiritual set of tools that we'll present to you that you'll be able to apply to your life. For what? To get access to a power that enable you to experience something beyond anything you could ever imagine. It'll remove the problem. The gentleman was saying in the rough about what he talked about, this darkness, or he talked about these spirits. I call it the darkness. When it comes upon me, I can't see it. And when it comes, it has me, and I can't do nothing about it. But here they're saying we could do something about it by obtaining a psychic change or spiritual experience. Right? And then they reconfirm here, this is so important going into the 4th, that I know I need to have this thing because my life depends on it now. Does that kind of make sense? Because the alternative is I'm going to die an alcoholic death. Legions of people that have gone before me have proven this. But they've also proven that that doesn't have to be my story anymore or my fate. Because we have a solution for this. And it's doctored. It's shown by the Dr. Silkworth where he witnessed this thing, this miraculous thing. They call it a phenomenon. Right? And so they talk about our inabilities here at the bottom, page 44, our inabilities to fix us with us. Premier code, better philosophy, acceptance, surrender, let it go. If those philosophies work for us, then we wouldn't need a program of recovery, would we? That's better philosophies. Anybody ever try that stuff? Just be positive. Get up in the morning, tell yourself you're an alcoholic every day, don't drink. What happened? I forgot to tell myself. So it's like all those are self-based ideas. Are they not? Come on. How many people have tried to get sober based on your own ideas here? Well, that didn't work. I mean, like, they're saying we already have a way that works. Well, I don't know. That's kind of too much. It doesn't work for me. Well, it will work for you. Because how many people has noticed that pain and hearing goes hand in hand? The more pain you're in, the better you hear. You ever notice that? When you're not in so much pain, the guy's full of it. Like some of you are thinking that, I can tell by your lip. Well, when you come back, well, yeah, I remember what that guy was saying. Do you have his number? Yes, we do. So, they talk about lack of power was our dilemma. What do you mean by lack of power to create the change necessary for me to recover from this illness that has me and its grips? It has me, I don't have it. It's determining my life. What makes you say that? I'm here. When I first got here, because I was under the lash of alcohol, it made all my decisions. And it was more important, like you hear people say, I lost my family, I lost this. We didn't lose them, they lost us. And they prayed for us, they hoped, they wept, they cried. They stayed up nights. Remember my mom giving me a card back before so she says, put this in your pocket. It was her name and number. I laughed. She says, for when they find your body. And I laughed at her. Overreacting. I don't know how many people sat down and cried looking at my story. And I thought, what's your problem? My kid that in Toronto that I had to remove myself from because I was a danger to me and everybody around me. I thought she would be better without the kind of father that I was. Who does that? My addiction was determining those things because I couldn't change what I was doing, so I had to change my life to accommodate my addiction. Anybody like that here? I come in here looking for something better than I've ever experienced, and they said, here it is. We read it and how it works, and it's outlined in here. But our resistance to it is pretty remarkable. It's remarkable. I'm looking for a new way of life, but let's not get carried away. I want to do things that make sense to me. Oh, you're in trouble. Because we're some result of everything that ever makes sense to us, aren't we? How many people have hindsight really good here? Oh, that was a dumb mistake. I'm never doing that again. We do something worse. So anyways, lack of power. So this is the good one, because a lot of people think step 2 says, I need to find God, and that's not what step 2 is about at all. Step 2 is the outlaying of the solution that's available to us by obtaining this power that creates the change. Lack of power is my dilemma. Well, where and how was I get to find this power? Well, that's exactly what this book is about. So if I go through this book, I'll have the same experience of those that put this together. Yeah, kind of weird, eh? They put a book together so I could have the exact same experience as those that put this together. So how do you know you've done this or not? Here, how many people say, I've done the steps? Well, good, show me. Oh, I've never done no steps. I've done my steps. Welcome back. So that explains the look on your face, right? You see people, oh, I'm so happy. All right. So as they start going through we agnostics, which is really cool, is the beginning of the shifting in my thinking. And I'm 54. It is what the gentleman was talking about earlier, is where I spend my focus. We all have belief system. We all have things we worship. We all have things we believe in. We're constructed that way. But it's not working for us. We spend a lot of times worshiping money, people, places, and things. As soon as I get rid of, the promises are always associated with, I'm getting things back. Anybody hear that? That's not the promises. Because anybody who concentrates on getting things back is soon coming back. I got this back, I got that back, guess who's coming back? Because the focus is still exterior. Right? The promises are all internal. The wife came back, I'm good. The wife didn't come back, I'm good. My mother's not doing well, I'm good. My mother's doing great, I'm good. I find the ability to show up and be present because I live out of here now. I don't live out of the dictations of the world around me, don't determine who I am as a person and how I show up in people's lives. Right? Because I tapped into this power the gentleman was talking about earlier. Through tapping into this universal strength that's available to us. How you look at it, that's what we acknowledge. It doesn't matter. Creative, intelligent, frequency. But is there something greater than us that we could tap into, that we create our whole life? Yes. Since the beginning of mankind, they've been talking about this. And you go into the middle of the Amazon forest, there are people who haven't had contact with people whatsoever, and they'll have a form of belief system that governs them. There's something, we're connected. We have this beacon inside that yearns for that. And what happens is we ignore it somewhere along the line and we find it in a drink. I need one. After listening to that. No, so it's the disconnection of something that's always been there. And 55 is the juice. Because we know what we want, but how do I get it? How many people got a GPS here? Or been in a car with a GPS? How many people stole one? No. Oh, I know that model. So anyways, the way GPS works, we used it to come here from Vancouver. Never been here. Beautiful country, by the way. Beautiful people. This has been an extraordinary trip. Imagine that, planning your vacation around an AA meeting. What a life, man. So we plugged it into the GPS and we started our process down here. It told us problems that lied ahead. It told us upcoming problems. It told us everything we needed to know to get here. Right? That system. And when we wanted to veer off of that system, it would go recalculating to get us back on track. Anybody? We have that within our lives. And anybody remember growing up? Don't do this, don't go there. Watch stranger danger, whatever. You get that feeling that you learn. Even animals have. My dog has that as a rescue dog. He trusts people. There's some people he don't trust. If my dog don't trust you, I don't trust you. Like animals know. Anybody? So we have this thing deep down within, but we've cut ourselves off from it, right? And we've used logic and instinct, response to life. I need to know the jump on you. I need to get ahead of this. I'm always thinking, what's 3 steps ahead? Where's the exits? Who's who in the zoo? Who's here? Who's the player? Who? Blah, blah. Zzz. Anybody walk into a bar and exactly know who's who? Start a new life and you get off the bus and you run into the same people you leave behind? We have this magnet because we attract what we are. Right? And so here they talk about this thing being deep down within. What's deep down within? My connection to source. This thing that's always talked to me. This thing that's always said, Tony, there's something better. In my darkest moments, this thing, I remember this one time I came to, I don't know where the hell I was, what happened, but this thing said I was about to go to sleep. Something said, don't fall asleep on your back. I don't know where the voice came from. I turned over and I came to in the morning. There was vomit on one side of me. If I would have fell asleep on my back, I would have died of asphyxiation because I was so loaded. Anybody have that voice? Yeah. Right? And anybody have it and say, I should have listened to it. I should have listened to it. And then somewhere along the line, it gets very faint. We don't hear it anymore because we've tuned our lives out of living out of consciousness. We're living out of instinct, right? We're living disguised in the pain, right? And so I'm numb to these things. Now I'm getting sober, and these things are coming back. Hey, remember this? Hey, remember that? And then the thinking opens up Pandora's. Anybody? And I can't close it. And I'm gripped with this thing, and it's starting anxiety because of some of the things that happen where I've been and things I've been through and the things that happen. And I can't close Pandora's box anymore because I used to numb that with pills, drinking, fighting, gambling, sex. I caused a distraction in my life. So when these things would appear, I'd have a way of dealing with them. Now I'm getting sober. Some people say their lives get better when they get sober. My life got worse because I started showing up. The realization of the mess and the chaos that I've created were beyond my ability to deal with. Right? So when they said this thing that lie deep down within, if I could get access to that, it would help navigate me through my life. That I wouldn't have total dependence on me anymore. That I'd start getting this reliance on something greater than me, that the people that went before me said is tried, tested, and true, that since they come to do these things and believe in these things, they have a life beyond anything they could ever imagine. And the basis of their life is a spiritual path and a relationship with a power greater than themselves. They stop working on them and they work on their relationship. That's phase 2 recovery. Phase 1 recovery is our over-concentration of self. Phase 2 recovery is our concentration on our relationship with something greater than ourselves and be of service to people, places, and things within our community. The giving back, right? So, here we go. So we get to step 3. And step 3 is an idea. That if I pursue the rest of this thing, I could have this relationship and I could get access to this power that will create the change sufficient enough for me to recover. And the beautiful part of that is the spiritual appendix in the back of the book tells me what a spiritual experience is. It's a change sufficient enough for me to recover. It's the rearrangements of thoughts, attitude, emotions, and the displacement of these things that were once the guiding force in my life. These things determine who I was. Right? I couldn't be free within myself because these things were plaguing me continuously. So they said if I was willing to go through this thing, what would usually take place in a few months could seldom have been taking place by years of self-discipline or therapy or external work. So they're giving me a 2-month window here. And if you read Bell's story, he talks about that. And most people's story is that why 2 months? Because I start this thing, I start incorporating this thing, I start practicing 11, I start working with other people, I start cleaning up the wreckage of my past. Right? In step 10 it says, when we're halfway through, people say there's the step 9 promises. They're not the step 9 promises. They're a summary of the course of action incorporated in my life by living these principles. It says, by this time, sanity will have returned. By what time? By the time I'm halfway through. Step 10 talks about my relationship in 11. So what's the purpose of step 4 is the foundation for step 11. Right? And so what's the purpose of the book? To find this. Work with me. There we go. Find this. People thinking. I'm thinking about my story here for a second. Well, I'll give you a second to come back. How was your trip? I've been doing these I've worked with thousands of people. We do a big book study. Our small group, we do 20 a week now. And it's amazing. Like, I've been doing these workshops for 33 years. And it starts like, people start off like, wow, this... They go from, wow, this is interesting, to the Stephen King movie in their brain, right? They're front row to their thinking and they're eating popcorn. It's, oh my God, right? They disappear. So when you find that happening, just take a big breath, come back, join us. We're having a meeting here. You're welcome. Hey, how was the trip? Whoa, scary as hell. Nothing happened. Oh, it happened. You get what I'm saying? See, this thing, it has us. We come to in the thinking. That's the bondage of self. I don't have a recipe to deal with that. That's what they're talking about here. As I learn a recipe and I have an experience with this thing that enables me to be an observer of my life instead of a hostage to it. So the spiritual appendix tells me this is what I'm hoping for. So the GPS, I'm setting it for a spiritual experience. Does that kind of make sense? So that when I need to have this thing, because to stay where I am means disaster, it means my demise. But this thing's available here for me, so I'm setting a GPS for a spiritual experience. Step 12. You all with me? But before you get there, what's the one thing that needs to happen? Here's the food for thought. There's get you thinking. What does the GPS do before it sends you on the route? Do. And who wins the prize today? It tells you where you are. It has to tell you where you're starting from. Because if you set your GPS here for over there, and I set my GPS in Vancouver for over there, we're both going to the same destination, but we're starting in two different places. So for my GPS to be successful, it needs to know where it's starting from. If we're going to be successful, where are we starting? We're starting from deep down within. This thing that's always been there, this life force that's trying to get my participation in the saving of my life. I need to participate what this thing has always wanted for me is the better life that I had. To be that better father, to be the better brother, to be the better son, right? This thing, this yearning for better than what I was experiencing. And this says it's available deep down within. This is where this life force is. So what makes you say that? So when we go to the how it works in 63, what confirms our decision in step 3? We start step 4. If you haven't started step 4, you haven't done step 3. You could do step 3 every day. It doesn't mean crap. Because it's an idea. It's a confirmation of the decision. I need to have this experience. Because if it was a 3-step program, it would be 3 steps. Glad you're experiencing it now. Phew, because you know what we say, if I'm able to have this thing by doing 3 steps, what I just told myself, I don't need to do the rest of them. Because I think it's about feeling better instead of getting better. The delusion that I have something by doing nothing. Nobody's been like that here, right? Oh, the promises are coming true. What have you done to get them? I've been to 45 meetings, halfway through 90, right? You'll be amazed before you're halfway through. Anyways, some of you get that on the way home. Oh, yeah. Okay. Thinking now. So on the top of page 64, and this is what the reminder of in sponsorship. I need to get this relationship with this power, and it needs to be personal to me, or else. Or else what? My demise. What's proven that? Well, you know what? You're the only one that don't know you're not staying. Oh, it got quiet, eh? Whoa, it got real all of a sudden, right? How many people thought they'd be here forever only to get another 24-hour trip? How many people know people that were here and not here anymore? That's why it doesn't ask you, how do you feel about this? Right? It's what have you done about this? What have you done about this? And what are you doing about this? Because if I couldn't hear a sermon or hear what you were saying, would I be able to see what you were saying? My friend here, I could see what he was saying. If I didn't hear a word he was saying, I could see what he's saying. His involvement, it enriches his own sobriety. Right? So here, at the top, it says, at the bottom, it says, next we lunged out on a vigorous course of action. Next we lunged out. What does that mean? Oh, let's take our time and think about this. No. We already know we're on a life and death errand. My life is in the balance here. Right? And it's not only about me anymore. See, our responsibility as sponsors, we think it's about you. It's not about you. What it is about your family, your friends, your community. They're hoping that you find an answer to the problem that they're praying about. Right? They're hoping that they could have their child back, or their brother back, or their father back. And so what happens is when you come here, is we're representing the idea that we're going to send you back to your family, your community. And you're going to have that life that you've always wanted. You're going to be that parent that you always hoped for. You're going to be that thing that was always out of grasp. That's what we're doing here. Right? And so they talk about here, the first step of which is a personal house cleaning. So the first step And bringing about this change is step 4. It's not step 1, it's not step 2, and it's not step 3. They're information steps, right? You could do those things every day for the rest of your life, ain't changing nothing. If you're alcoholic of our type. I see that look. What makes you say that? How many people's had a problem with their car here? So, it's sitting in the driveway. It's got 4 flats. You look at it and you realize it's got 4 flats. So, you go in the house and you pray about it. You come out, still got 4 flats. That's step 1. There's a problem here. Well, let's walk around the car and talk about acceptance. Okay, you accept, you have 4 flats. You still got 4 flats, right? You get what I'm saying? So somebody comes up, what's the matter here? Well, I got 4 flats. So say, well, why don't you get 4 new tires? Wow, that would be the solution, wouldn't it? Wow, that sounds, yeah, I've got to get 4 tires. You know where I could steal a pair? I mean, you know where I could buy a pair? Right? There's a couple lying over here. So you know that's the solution, yes? So does that change anything? Well, you feel good. You got 4 tires now, sitting beside a car with 4 flats. You look at 4 tires, look, there's my solution right there. And there's my problem. Okay, go back in the house. That's like sitting in the meeting. I got 4 flats. Yeah, there's 4 tires available to me. Oh, I feel good about that. So, and talk about you have 4 new tires. Did you put them on the car yet? No, let's not get carried away. We're just talking about it. We're not doing nothing about it. We're just talking about it. Okay, well, are you going to make a decision? You know what? I'm going to put those tires on there. I'm going to put those tires on there because I really need to get my car back if I'm going to recreate my life, right? Are the tires on the car? No. But you said they are. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Go back in the house. You just told the whole meeting that you were going to do it. What confirms you doing it? You got to go to the trunk and go through a process. Go to the trunk, see if you got a jack, take the jack out, take the tire out, and start the process. What confirms your decision? Opening the trunk and getting the jack. Until you do that, nothing's changing. You're picking up when I'm putting down, so that's steps 1, 2, and 3. Step 4 is, let's get the jack out. Let's get the things out of the way that's stopping me from living my life. Right? So when we go down here, which is really cool, is they talk about a personal house cleaning. This is a part people read through really fast. What they're saying here is, we're going to give you a new recipe on how to look at your life, and it's going to be a spiritual recipe. We're going to give you a new way of looking at things because the way you look at things isn't working for you. It's keeping you in bondage and difficulty. You can't detach from the things that are causing you problems. So what they're talking about here is a commercial or commercial inventory. They talk about here. Step 4 is a business that taking no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding, fact-facing process to discover the truth about the obstacles in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsellable goods. I'm learning English here, and get rid of them without regret. Right? I had no education when I come in here. It's pretty cool. I couldn't even read. Now I can. So the big book's really helpful. So the 4th step is kind of looking at my life as a business and getting rid of the things that aren't working for me. And being able to see that, which I can't do on my own, because if I was able to do on my own, I wouldn't be experiencing what I'm experiencing. I wouldn't still be plagued with me. So I need a new spiritual way of looking at things. And so that's what they talk about here. And they say, let's show you this recipe. Right? And so they said here, they talk about, we did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup which caused our failure. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup which caused our failure. Right? Being convinced that self manifested in various ways which had defeated us, we considered as common manifestations, how it shows itself, how it presents itself. These are the things that are crippling me. And what happens is, a lot of people change that. The book's very clear on what they are. Right? And so here's the wording. Here's where I'm going to make friends, right? So, resentment is the number 1 offender. This is the common manifestation in the human dilemma. Anybody with resentments are going to have problems. But for us, if we don't take care of these things, they cut us off from source and we get drunk again. Right? So we're harboring these things. Right? And this is really cool here. They talk about here, right? Resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. Look at the wording. Ready? From it, meaning what? From the resentment. Right? From it stems all forms of spiritual disease. For we have not been only mentally and physically ill, we've been spiritually sick. So what created the spiritual sickness? The resentments. Anybody with this level of toxicity is going to be sick. It's the human condition. But for us, these things kill us. Why? Because it cuts us off from the life force that we need to tap into that keeps us sober. Normal people can have resentments and they don't have to worry about it. But some of them go out and kill somebody who are not alcoholics. We think these are alcoholic traits. No, it's the human condition that I need to find a solution for. Right? If I don't find a solution for these things are eating my lunch on a daily basis. These things they talk about are rooted. You know, when something's deep rooted, they're at a subconscious level making my decisions for me. So what happens is I'm looking at life, and at a subconscious level, I get a memo from my consciousness saying, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. Be prepared. And none of that could be happening because it's my past determining how I'm going to respond in the present. Does that kind of make sense? But I don't know that because I'm instinctual based. Right? And so it's kind of like I create a delusion in my mind that I believe to be true. How many people's had an argument with somebody who hasn't been in the room with you? How many people waited for them to get home to finish the argument? They come home and they're wondering what your problem is. And you're like, yeah, and then you get more crazy. You're having a one-sided argument trying to involve somebody else. How many people have one-sided arguments here? All the time. So we look at this. So when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. Why do we have this malady? Well, if you're not dealing with life, right? Whether you were drinking or not, if you weren't covering your responsibilities, how would you feel? If you're resentful at people, how would you feel? If you're not looking after your kids, your family, your responsibilities, how would you feel? Would it start eating at you? That's why we have so many different 12-step fellowships. These people found different solutions to the human dilemma. That's why a lot of us, when we quit drinking, we go to other avenues to find a solution to my human problem. They're saying we have a spiritual solution to your human problem. Right? That's why they talk about 100 forms. Right? When the spiritual malady is overcome, in dealing with resentment, we set them on paper. So they have a recipe here. And in this book, you talk about here, you see this outline here, and it's pretty good. So what I get guys to do is on the one page over here, I get them to do the 3rd step prayer. Because doing your 4th step without prayer is not doing your 4th step. The whole purpose of the 4th step is start getting connection to power, that you start having your own experience of what's available here. Right? It's not just a mental exercise. It's an exercise in tapping into this inner resource of strength. So when I apply this prayer, I seem to have the ability to start doing my 4. How many people have tried to do their 4 here without prayer? That's the first indication. How many people have been working on the 4 for a long time? Nobody getting involved again. I'm not outing myself here. You get it? So if you're working with somebody and they're not doing their 4, there's 2 reasons for it. One, they're not praying, or they haven't done step 1 yet. Because if you haven't done step 1, then the earnestness to do this is really not there. And if they have done step 1, the reason they're not doing their 4 is because they're not inviting the Creator into this. They're not praying. Right? So if you look at the 3rd step prayer, what does the 3rd step prayer say? Relieve me of the bondage of self. Well, why can't I do my 4? Because I'm in bondage. So what I'm doing is I'm living my 4 instead of doing my 4. How many people spent way more time thinking about their 4 than it took to write it? If you did your 4 as much as you thought about it, you'd have been done in the first 2 days. But no, I like the pain. I'm I'm going to live it for a while. And we get crazy. It's crazy. And there's nothing nobody can do for you, because then you got to go to God. God, help me. Save me from me. That was my prayer. Help. I need help. God, save me from me and save others from me. Because when we start looking at self, we start getting crazy. Anybody here? So I need to bring God into it. So as we go through this, it starts going through the shift. Then it gets into the fears, which is really interesting, because they do a shift here. When we do our fear list and we look at it, they start applying prayer right away. They start saying, perhaps there's a better way. We think so, for trusting and relying upon God. They're suggesting that the relationship's already started. Right? And then we see why we have these fears is because of self-reliance, not God-reliance. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to be my own solution. I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to do this. The planner, schemer, and developer. Anybody like that? Anybody ever pray here and wonder how God was going to look after it? I don't know how God's going to fix this. I've been thinking about it all week. I can't see it happening. So we put limitations on this thing when it's beyond our scope of understanding. Because if this thing can create change your spiritual experience and can create a shift in me where I'm starting to be comfortable in my own skin, and then what it is a spiritual kind of a severing of the things that are attached to me, the abscesses that are attached to my spirit that cut me off from the sunlight of the spirit. So what that means is all those abscesses, anybody don't know what an abscess is? It's a thing that develops pus. And if it breaks, if you have it in your teeth, it could actually kill you. And this abscess is on our spirit. It cuts us off and this thing slowly poisons us. And every once in a while, it's there determining every once in a while we get a glimpse of it, and it's too much for us to handle. Right? You hear people say, I have an anxiety problem. No, you have a thinking problem. Right? Because all that stuff, what am I going to do with all that stuff? People, places. So here is the severing of that stuff, which is pretty cool. And then they talk about a recipe here when you get into the 4-step on a prayer. What we're learning is a formula. Right? And what's the formula? The ability to be an observer instead of a participant. So the 4-step is putting down on paper what I suffer from on a daily basis. The 4-step is not how I used to be, it's how I am now. This is me on a non-spiritual basis. This is what I am and capable of on a non-spiritual basis. Right? People say, oh, my old behaviors. It's not old behaviors if you're still doing it. It's a solution to a dilemma that you've always used in the past as a go-to. Here we're trying to find a new way, right? So they talk about here, which is really interesting, on page 66. When they talk about fear on page 68, this recipe. So they talk about at the end of, if you do they say they trust their God. They never apologize for God. I never apologize for God in a meeting. You hear people saying, well, I never apologize. You don't like it, too bad. Man, I wouldn't be here without this connection to a power greater than myself. I represent something greater than me. I could have never created this life. My daughter loves Alcoholics Anonymous because she wouldn't be here. Like it goes on and on and on. And instead, we let him demonstrate through us, through that connection, demonstrate through us what he can do. Right? So I ask him to remove our fear and to direct our attention to what he would have us be. At once, not later, at once, we commence to outgrow fear. And how it works, they said, may you find him now. So it's there. Where is it? Deep down within. It's available here in the now. So what's the recipe that they're talking about? Here is the acknowledgement that there's something happening within inside of me, creating a shift in my energy and how I feel and think. The narrator is starting to grab a foothold in my thinking. Is trying to take over the situation. Anybody ever have that problem here? So you're a participant. What they're saying here is, I acknowledge this thing's happening. I'm going to step back from it. I'm going to pray that it's happening. I'm going to acknowledge that it's happening. I'm going to ask my Creator for some help to overcome it and shift my thinking, what the elder was talking about here earlier, to where I could be of help and to be of service. And I'm going to go help somebody. I'm going to go participate in my meeting. I'm going to go do something. I'm going to phone my sponsor. I'm going to go do something spiritual, kind of related, instead of getting a tub of ice cream, getting in the horizontal movement, and turning off my phone. How many people here has had a problem, and you see your phone's ringing and you don't answer it? God's trying to help. That way, yeah, every way, right? So the answer is but some of us would rather suffer then do what's available here. That's why it talks about being convinced. Then it gets into our conduct. A lot of people think it's another house cleaning and the shame, guilt, and remorse that we carry. It's really, really a phenomenal exercise. It is getting hot in here, eh? Bringing on the heat. So it talks about our ability to shape a sane idea for the future. So if you're in a relationship, I get to determine what that looks like today with my partner and the people around me. It's pretty powerful. By where's one of the most common things I ask is, where's God in this situation? Every crap situation I've been in, there's never been a spiritual presence. Anybody ever notice that? In every good situation, usually God's fingerprints are somewhere in there. So when I show up unsupervised, it's not good. It's not good. Unsupervised means I'm going in alone, right? So you go through this, and then I did a harms list of people that didn't make my resentments, my fears, or my sex conduct. And then it finishes with this. Page 71. The whole purpose of fourth step was the removal of the things that blocked me off from the sunlight of the Spirit. Yes? The confirmation of doing it for the way it's outlined, right, is we hope you are convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from Him. If you have already made a decision and an inventory of your grosser handicaps. Which are your grosser handicaps? Resentments, fears, sex conduct, and harms. They're your grosser handicaps. Those are the things you carry, right? You made a good beginning. That being so, you swallowed and digested some big chunks of truth about yourself, how instinct-based you are, and how you're driven by these things that make your decisions for you. Right? And then it confirms on the next page what the purpose of this whole thing was having made a personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We have been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. What's the obstacles in our path? No, it's not you. Oh, it could be you. No, but no. See, they're specific. Why are they specific? Because we have to live the rest of our lives with ourselves. We're not the problem, but we have a problem. Right? And then we have free will, and now we're directing it along the lines of God's will for us to live a life beyond anything we could have ever imagined. So we need to know specifically what the problem is. The problem was, the obstacles were the resentments, the fears, the harms, the conduct, the things that I carry that are eating my lunch for me. If I was free of resentment, fear, and harms, how would my life look? Exactly the way it looks right now. Pretty awesome. So what were the things that kept me up at night? How many people? Resentments. Anybody keeping you up at night? Resentments? How about fear? Hey, how many people spend a lot of time in the future? How many people spend a lot of time in the past? How many people don't spend much time present? And that's what they're saying. So there's another day gone, right? We're in a conflict with ourselves in the creating of things that are not happening anymore. So if you want a new freedom and new happiness, this is what they're talking about, right? So what are the grosser handicaps? Fear. Do I have a recipe for that now? Yeah, I have the prayer. Do I have a new idea for my future sex conduct and the recipe on how to bring that about? Yes, it's right here. Do I have a recipe on mastering resentments? Because that's the key now, is learn how to master resentments so they work for my betterment instead of my demise. Right? And this is the foundation for step 11. This recipe. Why do I need this recipe? Because I need to stay connected to source. These things I review at the end of the night. As I go through the day, I pause. I apply these prayers. So I'm not getting engaged with me and I'm finding a different experience. So, I don't know if anybody has any questions, if that was helpful. But, that's the overview. Because it takes a lot to get into this stuff. And there's some talks on here. You could kind of Google this. And they'll take you through the first set of sheets and all that stuff. And hopefully, I don't know if anybody got any questions.
Am I cured?
You are. Well, what is that? So see, it's kind of funny, but when I say recovered, right, what does that mean? It means I'm no longer dealing with alcoholism. A lot of people go, oh, well, because I still have the human dilemma, but I'm not suffering from alcoholism. What's alcoholism? It was described on page 44. It was those two conditions, this condition of the mind, the alcoholic mind, and the physical allergy, right? So if I don't put alcohol into my system, I can't trigger the allergy, right? So if I've had a psychic change or spiritual experience, do I still have an alcoholic mind? If I do, I'm going to drink again. Then I haven't had this experience. You got to look at the wording of this thing, right? Why do these people continue to drink is because they have an alcoholic mind. He says, I've never seen one case ever recover for the person of your condition. He says, is there any exceptions? He says, yes, there's people who have had the psychic change or spiritual experience. So we'll go to page, if you want, you kind of look at page 85. It talks about the problems removed. It doesn't exist for us anymore. What's removed? Alcoholism. And I get a daily reprieve from that, contingent on what? My relationship with a power greater than me. So who solves my problem, me or my relationship with this power? I heard people, I was joking the other day, said, I've been in witness protection now over 33 years. Right? Because step one was killing me. I needed protection from that because there's nothing I can do about it. Step two says, I have a new identity for you and a new way of life. I bought into that. And I've been doing that ever since. So on page 85, they talk about here, we get in there. They talk about here, we've not even sworn off the problem has been removed. We're neither fighting it nor we're avoiding temptation. We feel though we have been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. Right? We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. What has been removed? The thing that was killing me, this condition of the mind. On page 23, they talk about this malady. What was the purpose of the steps? To have a psychic change or spiritual experience. It removes this problem. So what am I left with? I'm stuck with me. Now I need some help. Because I need help. Anybody, you notice that? That I need help? No, I'm not talking about that we need help because I still faced with me. I'm still faced with my life and all these things, right? I need to find peace with all this stuff. So what I have is a daily reprieve contingent on what? My relationship. I'm not working on me. I'm working on my relationship. It's like this. And this scenario made so much sense to me, right? So when I started getting sober, I started getting bills. Anybody ever bills? And so it's complicated to pay them on time all the time. Like I kept on missing the dates, right? And I get the notice. So my sponsor says, why don't you get it automatically taken out of your bank account? I said, my bank, you can do that? He says, yeah, it says automatic withdrawal. I said, wow, that's wild. So I took all my bills and I put it into the bank account. So now I don't have to think about all my bills. All I need to think about is having money in the bank account. I've got to think about one thing now instead of 20 things, right? So he says, now how am I going to do this? He says, get a job. So I get a job, right, with a new employer. We have a new employer being all-powerful. So now I got a job, and all I got to do is show up on a daily basis and do what my employer asks me. The better a job I do, the more advanced I'll get, yes? And I'll get automatic payment put in for my check into the bank account. Now I don't even have to worry about the bank account. All I need to do is worry about my employer. Right? And that's like this thing. The more I go through this, all I worry about is my relationship with my employer. Everything else gets taken care of. Pretty wild, right? And it's that simple. It is but you need to experience it for yourself. Because listening to it says, that sounds great. But if you get in a position you got nothing else to lose, okay, I'll try it. And then you go, why didn't I do this earlier? Because you had to punish yourself first. You had to get to a place where your life got so miserable, ours looked good. Yep.
I got a question for you. You mentioned recovered with the ED on it and past tense. Recovery is in the present. But the 12 and 12 says the fourth step is a lifelong process, practice. Are you on the side that believe that just doing one fourth step you set, or is it recovering and continuation of doing step work?
See, so without getting into the whole thing, personally, I'd burn. I don't like the 12 and 12. I'd burn it, but that's my own personal bias. Because Bill wrote that with the influence of another person. It was a Christian-based idea. And a lot of that idea that was presented in the 12 and 12 was Bill's experience after 13 years of application. But it wasn't totally his kind of experience. What it was, there's a lot of Christian working on self. That's why a lot of people in our fellowship like the 12 and 12, and they don't do the big book because they don't need to do the big book to stay sober.
He wrote that when he was in his most chronic state. He was in 11 years of depression.
So, no, it's 13 years. So what we're talking about, he was in his chronic state of depression. So it was his human condition.
And the spiritual malady, still.
Well,
I'm not trying to debate.
no, but okay. So if you look at let's look at the way the book's laid out, right? So the book's laid out for a solution to alcoholism, yes, and the solution for that is a psychic change or spiritual experience, yes. It says once I have that, then what I have is what? A daily reprieve, yes, contingent on my relationship, yep. So what I'm left with is my human condition. And what I need to do is the application of these things on a daily basis to maintain this relationship. Right? And a part of that is working with others. Reason Bill was depressed all the time because he was whoring around on his wife.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay, so you know what? So his human dilemma, he was looking for answers outside of his relationship with God. And he was paying for that. But I can't believe I just said that out loud. Okay, but what happens is his conduct was causing him depression, right? And that's not alcoholism, that's his human dilemma. He was looking for a solution outside his relationship with a power greater than himself. And the more he sought that, the worse he got. So he had to get back to a place of seeking professional help and back to a place of humility, of regaining that relationship with a power greater than himself. Right? How many people engage in conduct that's unbecoming to the lifestyle that you want? How many people cause guilt, shame, and remorse based on that stuff? And why do we keep doing it? Because lack of power is our dilemma. We're doing stuff that we don't want to do. We're not doing stuff that we want to do. So what's the solution for that? The more I get tapped into this power, it gives me the ability to live the life that I was never capable of living. So before these things used to cripple me, like porn and all that, gambling, porn, smoking, like all that stuff, the more I tried to fix it, the worse it got. Anybody like that here? I'm not going to look at porn today. I'm not going to look at, oh my God, look at the porn. Because it's self-fixing self. It's like where's my concentration? My concentration is on me, fixing me, and focusing on the problem. Here, it's like I recognize the problem, shift the focus. The elder was talking about today was great. Where am I spending my energy? Page 54 talks about that. Where do I spend my energy in my worship? Here they're saying we're giving you a new direction, a new guidance. So if I'm having a problem over here, that means I'm having a problem in my spiritual connect, or I'm having a problem in one of my instincts, my social, my ambitions, my security, that's bringing up fear, and I'm looking for a self-solution instead of a God solution. So when I'm having problems in my social, I acknowledge that, I pray about it, and I go work with another alcoholic, and it subsides. Bill talked about that. Plagued with depression the first year and a half of his sobriety. What would save the day? The ladies talked about that earlier. Go work with another alcoholic to overcome self. Like none of us are getting out of here alive. And the human state will always, right? My sponsor gave me a sticker once that says, "You're now looking at the problem." It's on the mirror. Every human being has problems. I don't know, anybody find that surprising? And how many 12-step fellowships are there? 101 or something like that, with the human dilemma attached to it. We're an extreme group of people. Why? Because we look for other things to fix us instead of fixing the things inside of us through our connection with Source. It's the only solution we have, right? So am I cured of the human condition? No. Do I have a solution for the human condition? 100%. Am I recovered from the condition that was killing me? Yes, 100%. Based on what? Based on my relationship with a power greater than myself, I have a daily reprieve. I'm not cured. I stopped doing this, I'm drinking again, 100%. Anyways, any other questions? And if you're going to burn the 12 and 12, you might as well throw out page 417 too. Just throw it out of your book. Get rid of that one too. Anyways, that's enough out of me. Before I really cause some problems here.